Welcome on in. I am Boss Lady B, and I'm here to talk to you about my favorite subject. We're going to do a quick tutorial because I could go into depth and I could do a lot of fun video and stuff, but what I've done in the past is I've recorded hundreds of hours of tutorial footage and then I've gotten stuck not editing it and never got it out there. So I'm just going to do this in one take, so hopefully this is at least some information to help you get through farming, fertilizing, gathering, and all of that profession, which can be a little daunting and is a little bit deeper than a lot of other games take it, but is also why I absolutely love it in this game. This is one of the things I love about this game is its really fully integrated ecosystems, plants, and plant growing systems. So without further ado, let's get on in. If you watched our professions video, then you recognize this lovely chart here that's in the actual game. And if your server has not progressed very far, they'll all be nice and gray like this until you learn them, and then they turn blue. So let's talk about the thinking process if you want to be the farmer on the server. I would highly suggest taking gathering. Gathering is a very important basic level sort of trait. You're going to want gathering because this is 90% of what farming is. When you pick up a crop, that falls into the bucket of gathering. The only thing that you use farming for is making seeds, okay? Very, very important to understand. The only thing that you use your farming skill scroll for is making seeds. So you can farm early on. You won't get the same bonus to your like reduced calorie usage and such from the actual action of hoeing the ground. That does help once you pick up farming, but the picking of plants and the getting additional plants from the picking of them is gathering, okay? So gathering is very important. Gathering and then farming. You may decide at this point, because farming is very much a once a day thing. You can end up with enough crop plots that you spend your entire day farming, but it is a little bit of a waiting game. Some of the crops take 12 hours, some of them take 18. They take a long time to grow, so it's a little bit of a hurry up and wait situation. You may decide to take, at this point, once you get farming, campfire cooking. These three skills are very complementary. You are self-contained, and you're able to farm up what you need to cook and be your own supply line. Otherwise, as the farmer, you're going to end up feeding into the cooking and milling professions. So you will be the provider for them. So if you have a robust economy on your server where that's possible, you may not need to, but just as a little kind of trifecta, I would take campfire cooking. Now, once you have farming, there's a couple different ways to progress, and this is all dependent on your server, what's going on, and how integrated you want to be. As the farmer, I would highly suggest from a competitive economy standpoint, take milling. Milling allows you to make a lot of different things. It's a very key skill for later tech. So milling gives you flour and things like that, but it also gives you flaxseed oil, which is integral to making the tier 2 wood material. So you need flaxseed oil. Flaxseed oil also goes into art supplies, which is really important for culture. So hitting that milling is really key. I would highly suggest that as your 3rd or 4th star if you're going down this path. And then if you're really dedicated to sort of the RP and keeping it tight, I would take fertilizers. So fertilizers is really complicated. It's really complex. I will do my best to do an entire video on fertilizers and explain it. I think I've figured out pretty well for update 10, how the numbers have shifted and how to apply these to your crops. It's not like Minecraft. You don't just apply bone meal and poof, your crop turns into the mature variety. This is soil science and nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, and how to apply that to areas, and it's a whole complex thing. So to be a viable farmer in the long term, you absolutely have got to have fertilizers. It is a non-negotiable thing. So if you have a big old farm field and you've been farming it the entire time you've been on the server, you are absolutely going to need fertilizers. So that's what I would take. I would take gathering, farming, and then you get to decide whether you want to go with that campfire cooking, then come up here to milling and fertilizers. So that's already 5 stars. That's a pretty robust profession sort of combination. Anything past that, I usually, like I said, I usually end up being a little bit more insular. So I usually go back through and I find a couple other professions that might need a little more beefing up. I usually take baking and cooking, but you may decide if you want to progress forward instead of going backwards. You may decide to take on advanced baking or advanced cooking, so you kind of skip forward to one of the advanced cooking or baking things. And again, because you are the farmer and the miller, you are feeding your own pipeline, especially with baking. I would highly suggest baking. If you take milling, baking is just absolutely great because you can make your own flour and your own paste and your own oil and all of that. So I would highly suggest going into the baking route of things once you get past milling. And that's probably where you're going to end up, because being the farmer on the server is very, very time consuming, and you're not going to have a lot of time to do a whole bunch of other stuff. That's probably your end game. Maybe you'll end up with the cutting edge cooking, and then you'll be using your crops to make biofuel. So that's the entire path, but let's zoom out here outside of the skill tree here for a second, and let's talk about the literal bits of farming. The table that you will be crafting everything on is the farm table. So I have a fertilizer table, which I named fertilizer table, and I have a farmer's table. They are the same thing. I just named them differently because I'm using one for seeds and I'm using the other for fertilizers because I took both professions. As you can see, what happens is you have the crop, and once you have, 100 prickly pears or 1 prickly pear, you can turn it into a prickly pear seed. This is really important, especially early on. There's a lot of people that are just picking things all over the place. People will just run around picking everything, even if they don't have gathering. So early game, it is very key for you to build up a seed bank to some extent, at least a couple of things. There is a spoilage mechanic in the game. So you may want to wait and keep the crop for a little bit and then transfer it over to a seed. The seeds do go bad. The best thing is to have it in the ground, but that's not always the option. So do make sure to kind of keep track of populations of things, keep some seeds on hand. Sorting and storage is a mess at tier 1 with just regular storage chests. Once someone can make you a silo, you're going to be so happy. But basically, this is your table. This is what you use. You transfer the crops into seeds. How I like to do this once I'm up and running, do your first harvest of your field, and then I always make enough seeds to replant that field. So if the field is 10 5x5 plots, I will make 50 seeds of that from the crop I just harvested, and I will keep that, and then I will use all the rest of that crop to make other things or sell it to people or put it into recipes. But first off, it comes to this table, it gets turned into whatever seeds I need to make sure that field stays planted. All right. So that's kind of the table side of things. Now, as you can see, there are some items that we can make, like the salt basket, which is a furnishing item for your kitchen. That is really handy. And then because I have fertilizers, the fertilizers are unlocked. They're in here. You basically need dirt, an item, and the ability to transfer that into a fertilizer. We will do a video on this. This is its own kind of thing. But let's go up and let's look at some of the crops that we have on the planet. Let's talk a little bit about location, because farming is location, location, location. So I started on this server very much going in as the logging and carpentry person, but because I love farming and we really didn't have anyone early game, I ended up going into the farming sort of side of things. Of course, I harvested everything today, so this is not the best looking field for you guys to see on a tutorial, but it is a functional field. We harvested everything a couple hours ago, and it'll be a good example for you to see what it's like. Farming ends up being very, very nerdy. So your best friend when farming is the map. Your map is going to be the thing that you're going to want to spend a lot of time looking at, spending time with, getting to know. You probably, out of everybody on the server, will know the planet that you are on the best, because you will need to find places all over the globe to farm. We can see the farmed lands by the dirt with the fences around it because of the change in land claims. We came up with an idea on our server where you just put a fence around, you put a sign, the sign says whether it's open to the public or not. If it is open to the public, we decided to put a thing where you put a chest and maybe some seeds and a hoe, and then people can come, they can harvest and replant and leave you 50% of the crop so that you have enough to make seeds. That's just a little thing we did on our server to kind of get around the fact that you can't land claim everywhere anymore. So all of these little places, as you can see, are all different biomes. So let's talk about different biomes. In the map, as I said, this is going to be your friend. You are going to want to look for a couple of key biomes right next to each other. You're going to want to look for a desert biome to some extent, okay? You are going to want to look for a forest biome. Do we not have any forests? I feel like we have some forests on here. No forests apparently. Okay, this is the forest biome. It's just not glowing. The grasslands is absolutely key. So the grasslands is number one. You can see farming here. You can see farming here. So grasslands, number one. Then you really want next door to the grasslands, you're going to want jungle. Okay, so any sort of jungle. And then you are going to want desert as your third. So this spot right here on this server might actually be a really sweet spot. It's got woodlands, it's got plains, it's got the desert, and it's got the jungle. You want to find somewhere with those biomes all really close together, because that will save you time. I will explain how this works. So this is my house right here. Let's turn off the biomes for a second. This is my house right here. I was going to do logging. So here's my little log farm. And that was going to be a pretty easy proximity, sort of like right next to the road, but, you know, kind of tucked up here. Lots of room to grow trees, lots of big flat area, easy peasy. And really good different biomes for that. Then when I went into farming, I was lucky that I had the ability. We have the forest biome here, I've got the plains here, and I've got this woodland biome over here. So I can grow a lot of different crops between these three areas. And then I snuck over some plains over here. So I ended up unintentionally being in a pretty decent spot for farming. But I'm really, 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 really far away from the jungle and the desert. So I do not have really easy access to that. And because of that, I've had to move because we had a town that formed over here where I was going to put my jungle stuff. I had to move my jungle farm all the way down here. So I have to run through the jungle, over the land, and over to the house over here. So this is a really, really long way to go just to go get my crops. Same thing with tomatoes. This seemed to be the best spot on the server for tomatoes. So my tomato farm is out in the middle of nowhere. So, oh, and as a bonus, the best spot for corn is also on the other side of the planet. So you will end up with things like this when you start to look at your map where this is the best spot for corn. That's just the way it is. You can't really change it. So, well, shoot. You're gonna set up a farm and then you're gonna be running halfway across the planet to go pick your corn and run back and forth to transfer it, and it takes a lot of time. I'm not gonna lie, this is a very time-consuming profession. So, how do we find out that that's the best place to plant your corn? Let's do our overlay. Now, this isn't to say you can't plant corn in any other area. I'm just a bit of a perfectionist, and I purposely chose areas that were already really, really good for corn. White is the best on the heat map, and purple is the least best, but still viable. And then outside of that, you cannot have the corn growing. So right here, I could have planted some corn. I do have some corn down here, but I need to fertilize. You can see it's all red. That's because it's taken all of those nutrients out of the soil. I need to fertilize it to get it back up. It was this like yellowy, light yellow color when I started. So I could put corn over here, but look at this. It is white hot here. Obviously, I've been growing some, so again, fertilizer needed, but it was white hot. This was the best spot on the server to grow corn. Hence, building a cornfield halfway across the planet. Let's pick another one. Beets. Beets were a really tough one on our server because everybody went just ham. They picked all of the beets on the server, and we ended up with kind of a beet shortage. So as you can see, like right here is a great spot, but if I toggle it off, it's a little bit tricky. It's a little bit like that's a lake, and that's an area next to a lake. So if you really wanted to, you could put a beet field right there. That's a really great spot for it. But again, it's really far away from everything. So what I ended up doing is I ended up putting this beet field up here. I ended up making a ginormous public beet field for our server because I wanted to make sure everybody had access to beets. And I just went and hand hoed. I didn't even have the push plow. I just went in and I hoed this entire thing, and it's been very time consuming. It's a little bit of a frustration because sometimes people do not replant. But anyway, this was all bright white when I started, and I just recently did a fertilizing run. So this was all almost a red purple yesterday, and I fertilized it up. So it's almost perfect. It's not quite, but it's almost perfect for soil nutrients. So that's kind of the way that you organize. You really want to take time. You want to look at it. You want to pick a few crops. If I was to say, this is hard. So there's a lot of crops. It's not like if you're in a certain biome, you're out of luck. Because there's always going to be recipes that you can make from each biome. There's so many cooking recipes that you're not going to be stuck if you don't have any ingredients. However, at different points in the game, you are going to need a lot of certain ingredients. So wheat is one of those. So once I found this wheat field and it was kind of close to my place, this was actually the first time I used the new land claim system. I made this field and someone else harvested it, and we are on a collaborative server. Okay, we're on a collaborative server. No one should have harvested this, but I immediately got the town set up and I put down some land claims, which since I've picked up a little bit around the edges because I feel like people know this is a no-go zone now, and you know, maybe they won't notice that there's some areas open. But I plopped some land claims down because I was like, this is all open, go for it. But like, do not touch my wheat because I need this wheat. We're now to a place where I have a pretty good stockpile of wheat. And like I said, once you get the silos, you're gonna be so happy because you can organize. And I built this sort of farm institution here to be a little bit of a public service. We'll see. But you can stack things up to 1,000. So cool. So we've got a decent amount of wheat. It's all processing through right now to flour. That flour, when you make flour with milling, you'll get flour and you'll get cereal germ, and then that will kind of be its thing. Here we have a seed bank, so when people come up, they can put in the crop and get seeds out, so that anybody on the server can just come in, and even if they don't have farming, they can get seeds. So I wanted to make it really, really easy for people to get into farming because it is a little bit of a time-consuming thing. I have put in all of these mills because I am a little bit crazy and milling takes forever. Milling is a very slow process. So the more mills that you can have, the better. Again, you can make oil and flaxseed oil and all sorts of important things. You will need, for the mills, you will need a windmill. So you will need either water wheels or a windmill. One or the other is really, really important to be able to power your mills. So that's kind of the overview of it. Going back to what crops I would say, again, I would say pick a plains spot because that gives you access to beets. It gives you access to wheat and sunflowers and tomatoes. Look at your server. Anything that is evergreen, like a huckleberry or a tomato, is very, very, very key. Prickly pear, those can be harvested over and over and over again, and will deplete the soil a little bit slower than the, pick up and replant crops. So if you do decide to go with that, that's a good one early on. So things like the huckleberries is really, really key. All right, so that's kind of the overview. I'm going to just show you physically where all of my different spots are and point out a little bit of the different crops on the island or on the planet. It may or may not be of interest to you, so if you have gotten all the information you need about farming fertilizers, just if you have a chance, give me a thumbs up. Let me know that this was helpful. And if you just want to see the kind of server tour of the farms, here we go. So this is my Trillium farm. This is for pigments for paints. I put this in because it is close to where my house is. It's a really nice level spot. It's also really rather pretty. So one of the things that later on in the game you may decide to start doing once you start fertilizing is very, very consciously planting in 5x5 blocks, because that's how the fertilizer works. So I very intentionally planted this one in 5x5s so that I could easily fertilize it, because I figure I'm going to be going through a lot of this because I want to create a lot of paintings. This area also would be really lovely for camas, but I have a different place for camas. Oh my goodness. This level of tech of food and such and fertilizers, huckleberries are so important. So I had a little patch right here that I've been using since pretty much day one of the server, and I expanded it because I was like, I need so many more huckleberries. As you can see, I did harvest all of these very, very recently. We also are starting to get into the level of tech where we need so many mushrooms. I decided to go with mushrooms for my vegetable medleys because they're not used in as many other recipes. That was just my thinking. You may decide to go with camas and corn. That's another option, but camas is used in so many different things. I tried to take the pressure off of the camas crop, so I went with mushrooms. Cremini mushrooms grow in this oak biome here, which is where I set up my house. Beans, oh yeah, I harvested the beans. So this is my bean field. So this is my little personal garden. When I come through, I remember to farm it, but it's not really accessible by the tractor. So for example, the beets, I don't farm these beets as much as the giant field. And then, as I said, I have a little spot of corn here, but as you can see, I really need to fertilize it by the map. Oh my goodness, Butch. Hi, buddy. He's like, yes, Mom, you're doing a tutorial. Let me get in on it. And then the point where I had to have a chit chat with my neighbor on the server was I had this sign right here, and you guys, I was standing here, and he was harvesting my flax, and I was like, the sign says closed. It says closed. So again, I set up property now, so this is now a claimed plot. I am the only person that can access it. In update 10, this is very tricky. This is not something that most farmers will have access to, which is a bummer because you put in a lot of time and a lot of effort to making these plots useful, and it sucks when someone harvests your crop. So anyway, flax used for so much, that is the crop that you are going to use for everything. So finding a good spot with flax is very important. Now let's jump down here. Again, this was going to be my tree farm, which it is. It's my tree farm, but it ended up now we have this ginormous camas field because we need camas. So I expanded. I had a little bit of a farm. Now this one was planted prior to thinking about fertilizers. I would probably expand it out now to the actual edge of that 5x5 so that we get the most bang for our buck with the fertilizers, because these little side plots like this, you're just wasting fertilizer. So that's just a thought to have. You just use your land claim tool to seed the 5x5. It's a pain in the buns, but when you set it up right, you don't have to think about it as much anymore. So this is our camas field. And then one of the other sort of things that we're getting into with baking and the higher levels is pumpkins. So we set up a little pumpkin patch over here. As you can see, I didn't really fence it because at this point I'd had some conversations with other people and they know better. But I do have a land claim on some of it just so that people know they know it's a claimed plot. Same thing goes over for our cotton, which is, again, it's one of those regatherable things. Plant once, you pick once a day or so, and this is very handy. Once you have an active tailor on the server, they're gonna love you. So these are our crops over here. Now let's show you the jungle run. I was really quickly just running down the road to go get my crops, and because on this server we decided to build a centralized road, you run faster on asphalt. Anyway, this is where I go to go get my my jungle crops. So we run through here, and if you remember, this was the spot on the map that I said you could plant beets. So this might be another spot where, you know, if someone wanted to have a little homestead, have some beets, it might be a good spot. So we're just gonna go into the river because you actually do swim pretty fast. Theoretically, I could barge up and down the river with a boat. We might need to clear it a little bit because there are some rocks and things in here. And I tried to use a small canoe with kind of mixed results. It didn't go well. I abandoned it. I literally got stuck on the rapids and I haven't been able to pick it up. So that boat has been there for weeks. A little embarrassing. We're just not going to talk about it. So I made a little dock, and then this is our jungle farm. And I have expanded this a bit. I put in pineapples. So the pineapples, you get one pineapple per plant. So this is a little bit space consuming. You need a decent amount. Again, once you've planted them, you just pick them, and generally they're all over the jungle, so you can just run around early days picking, you know, papayas and pineapples willy-nilly. I also planted some papaya trees. As you can see, I came through and harvested it a bit earlier. And then because, again, like I said, I'm getting into the mushrooms for the vegetable medleys, which is cooking, I planted the red mushrooms in here so that we have a source for that. Huh. Why are we seeing... Where did these logs come from? Sometimes... Sometimes... we find interesting things around. Okay, let's put this in this... Hopefully we have room in this cart. Yeah, okay, cool. So that's my jungle farm, and again, you saw how far I had to go to get to that. And then we are going to run around the beach, because you see there's this big old bay, and then our cornfield is down over there. So this is the life of a farmer. It is, on the one hand, I really enjoy it because you get to see a lot of the server. You're running around a lot. On the other hand, it can be a little bit tedious because you're spending a lot of your time running and walking places and going back and forth between places because you can only carry so much. And that can be a little frustrating if you're newer or you're not used to this. So here's our cute little cornfield. You know, I just have open for harvest, replant please. All of the stuff has gone bad, so I'm assuming these are all of the seeds, or someone didn't fully replant, which is a little bit of a bummer, but it happens, you know. So yeah, normally when I go to get to my house, I go this way because we have pretty much circumnavigated the planet. So that's the cornfield, and then we go over this way and around. And if I've done this correctly, I will end up in Valscore's backyard. So this is... You also have to get pretty good at navigating around the freaking planet because you're gonna go for a long ways. I think one of our people is tunneling over this way, so I'm slightly hoping that he's gonna pop out on the beach somewhere, and that I'll be able to drive my truck and get over here through the tunnel at some point. That would be amazing. So this is Valscore's house here. We're just gonna go around, and we're gonna pop over at a couple other farms that we have. So again, this is very much the way that farming works. You may end up having a few farmers on your... If you're lucky, you'll have a few farmers on your server. You can spread this load across a couple of different people. So I've made a little taro root farm over here. This is a little dicey since this is getting towards the other town's land. I also put some palm trees in because we really need palm trees, but I didn't want to clear too many of the rainforest trees out because they are very important. So it's a balancing act for sure. And then I'm getting ready to finish planting the prickly pear patch, which is going to be lovely. All these little lovely prickly pears. I have not made an agave tree farm. I sort of started to make one, and then it, wow, look at all that iron teleporting up. I started to make one, and it was a little too close to where everybody else was. I planted them over here. It was a little bit too close to where everybody started settling, so I just kind of gave it up, but agave farms are important. And then recently, when we were needing a lot of flax, I built my little patch, and then the other patch that was really good was here, and it was kind of 2 tiers. So what I did is I actually made the lower little spot open to the public, and then I made the upper spot mine. Mine. So this is my zone, and only I can harvest that. Someone else planted a huckleberry farm up here, which is kind of cool. No idea who did that. And then over, let's see, I don't think I can swim up this. Can I? No, I'm still learning the water mechanics in this game. Oh, no, maybe I can. Okay, yeah, sweet. We just swam up a waterfall. Look at us. We're like the Michael Phelps of eco. Okay. I just planted these in the last week. This is fireweed. Again, we'll go take a look at cooking. Like, I'm not going to do a whole cooking video right now because, again, we're like 30 minutes into this tutorial. I don't want to overload you guys. But I picked the fireweed because it is an ingredient I'm not using in anything else, and it is available for salads. So as much as possible, I'm trying to spread the load of what ingredients I'm using in the cooking. I kind of got pushed into cooking on this server. We had a cook day one, they only logged in once, and then they logged back out. Everybody else that took cooking was very casual, on maybe once or twice, and that was it. So I'm on all the time. I do love farming. I do love cooking. So I kind of took on cooking as a extra. I was going to be logging and carpentry. Logging and carpentry. This is what I was going to do. But I'll show you the recipes for this one. And this is my cute little embassy up here. So I really wanted to push out a little bit of our town back towards, we had a whole thing which I kind of explained a little bit in the town founding stuff, but this is our little hilltop art gallery, which probably no one knows is up here. But you can see on the town settlement, it's the hub where this is pushing out. We had someone that was within our sphere of influence over here. He is like our smelter industry guy. He's part of our community. He's been on multiple servers with us. And he ended up abandoned when our town moved back where it should have been. Something funky happened. So this is our town center over here. So that was funky, not intentional. So I kind of put this embassy up here hoping to merge with him at some point, to like reconnect with him. Right now, Yellow could annex him if they wanted to, but we've talked about it. I don't think they will. I hope they don't, because there really wouldn't be any purpose to it. But yeah, anyway, that was like, so anyway, this I digress. Let's go on our way back down. Let's see, is there any other crops? I don't know that I have any other crops going. I'm thinking of putting in a field of these guys in here as our final mushroom for the 3 mushrooms, just as a thought. It's pretty close to this person's place, so I don't know that I really want to do that. But we've come full circle. Here's the farm fields, okay? Farm fields and our trillium patch. So let me take you along the main road. So this is my little cooking alcove sort of thing. What I did originally is I had all of our campfire cooking going on in here, and that way I had 6 campfire cooking stations. It was all hooked up to ice boxes in the basement, and then it all hooked up to the store. The whole purpose was I wanted people to be able to sell me the ingredients. The internal currency was that math. The ingredients for a recipe equaled the price of the recipe. I didn't really factor in calories and time and markups or anything like that. I just took, it takes a papaya and a pineapple to make a, jungle salad, and then that would be the price of it. So these are the recipes I've chosen to go with right now. At the level we're at, this is a lot. You will probably not end up with this if you are a cook until end game. This is a lot. But these are the ingredients that I'm going for. I am looking for the different mushrooms. I'm looking for, that fireweed shoots, which is that beautiful pink plant up on the mountaintop. Fiddleheads, things like that. So let's go look at our recipes and our setup for cooking. So this is cooking. So once you get past the campfire, you get the cast iron stove. And once you get to the cast iron stove, there's a couple of key recipes that you're going to end up making. Bacon, everybody loves bacon. That means you have to have a friend that's a butcher. That's it. Then the autumn stew, which is your pumpkins, beans, and some sort of greens. So I would say pumpkins, beans, and maybe fiddlehead greens, pumpkins, beans, beet greens. But this is a really easy recipe to make. Again, you're going to need your pumpkins and beans. Then you're going to have all these different salads you can make. It's just basically giving you different recipes depending on where you live. So you do not have to make all these different ones. They all end up coming out at the other end as a basic salad. This is just the input. They end up outputting as a basic salad. So whether it's corn, tomatoes, and beets, whether it is prickly pear, cremini mushrooms, and rice, whether it is fiddlehead ferns, tomatoes, and fireweed, all of those end up outputting as basic salad. Okay, you're going to need these later on in research, but that's the gist of it. So that's why I decided to go with fireweed shoots. These aren't an ingredient in anything else. Tomatoes are really freaking easy to get because they're a renewable resource, just like the huckleberries. Piece of cake. And then ferns are everywhere. So this is a really good one, just in the whole like not pulling from other sorts of buckets. The same thing with the medleys. All of these medleys turn into just a vegetable medley. There's just different ingredients that go in. They all output into vegetable medley. So a lot of people will do corn and camas, but camas is really a high intensity ingredient, and corn is in so many different things. So I honestly wouldn't go with that. You know, I wouldn't go with that one. I would go with the mushroom medley because mushrooms are not being used in a lot of things up till this point. So by doing the mushroom medley, I can use the mushrooms, I can make those medleys, and then the medleys go into making vegetable stock. So you take those medleys, you make some vegetable stock, and then you can combine some of the medleys with the vegetable stock to make vegetable soup. Fantastic. Same thinking with the meat. You take little meat scraps, make that into meat broth, and then you take prepared meat and you make that into simmered meat, which is great. So those two, so you're going to end up with 4 recipes as your basic cooking at this level. This is a little bit high level right now where I'm at. This is mid to late game cooking. You're not going to be right here right now, but this is just showing the demands of this level. And then I like to make the fruit salad. So this is why I have my jungle plot, the fruit salad with the papaya and the pineapple. Done deal. 2 renewable crops. You have to harvest once a day and that's it. Bam, done. There are other fruit salads where it's like beets and huckleberries and prickly pear and, you know, pumpkin. But again, I'm trying to spread the load. So instead of doing pumpkin here and pumpkin here, I'm doing pineapple and papaya, which I'm not using anywhere else. So at each level, you're going to end up with things like that. Then when you go up to the next level, then we've got fish and chips, which is a whole different level of stuff. As you can see, beets are always really important. Beets are really key, just like camas is really key. And you're going to end up with different things along the way that are going to be really important. The sweet salad is boom, really awesome. And it takes a basic salad and a fruit salad. So your cast iron stove creates the basic salad and the fruit salad, and then it comes over here to the kitchen, and then you need simple syrup, which is sugar stuff. So we have not yet gotten to the stove because that's not where we're at, but this is just the final level of foods, just to see what you could make. Very important. Eventually you're going to be making a lot of boiled sausages for research. Just a thing that you're going to be ending up doing. Keep that in mind. So eventually all of that meat stock is going to go towards this. Again, being a butcher, having a friend that's a butcher and a hunter, very, very key all the way through to the end game. Very, very important. But you can kind of see some of the crops in here that become important. Corn, beans. There's a lot of recipes with the kelp and the fish. Papaya is very much still useful at this level. So you can see at the different levels, there's going to be different crops that are really key. And I'm thinking, where did we put our campfire cook? So we really don't need this anymore. This is just for a couple things where you need charred stuff. But you can see beets. Right off the bat, beets. huckleberries, ferns, huckleberries, ferns, and some sort of beet or something like that right off the bat. You have your papaya, your heart of palms. So this is your first level, right? These are your first levels that you are feeding your ingredients into. If you're not doing campfire and cooking yourself, be aware. Just kind of look at that and get a sense of it. So anyway, that's a really extensive overview of farming. We will get into fertilizers, soil sampling, and the math behind that another time. Hopefully, again, this was helpful. If you made it to this point in the video, give me like an emoji in the comment. You don't even have to think at this point. I know your brain is so full. We're 45 minutes in. Just give me a little emoji to let me know you made it to the end. And if you did, you're gonna get a like from me, because I'm just gonna be like, thank you for making it to the end. All right. If you have any questions, again, this is my specialty. I have done farming on every single server. I know a lot about farming in eco. I know a lot about farming in real life. So if you have any questions, this is my area of expertise, and I can help you to troubleshoot. I can help you to pick good spots on your server, where to farm, and we can go into even more detail on this subject. Let's see. There we go. Adios until next time. Stay classy, my friends.